When I returned before the apocalypse, the first thing I did was use my six-pack abs to lure my sister-in-law into the room. Everyone cursed me as a beast, no more, no less, but no one knew that I did it to save her. Only I knew that the apocalyptic firestorm was imminent, and the global temperature would rise by 1,000 degrees. Millions of monsters lying dormant beneath the earth will awaken, and humans will also become monsters who devour each other. The survivors will kill one another over resources. Even a single pack of instant noodles will be enough to make people fight to the death. A corn dog can turn a once-high goddess into a man's plaything. What is most important on the day of the apocalypse? Of course, it's resources. In my previous life, I wasted most of my time searching for resources. This time, I must prepare in advance. Being 20 seconds late to work cost me half a day's pay. In my previous life, when the apocalypse came, my boss had already fled. In this life, let me gather all the resources. With a wave of my hand, a space formed from green energy appears right before my eyes. All the food, cooking oil, and meat were automatically collected. That is my special ability space. It has greatly facilitated my cost-free shopping. Moreover, the resources in the space can remain fresh forever. Finally, I no longer have to eat dirt like I did in my previous life. When I started inventorying the resources in the space, the warehouse manager suddenly pushed the door open. The scene before them left them stunned. "Oh my, why is the warehouse empty?" they exclaimed. Then they questioned me. Where did all of these things go? Hearing that, I simply smiled gently. It was obvious that I had taken everything. The three of them suddenly became furious and rushed at me, intending to catch me, but I quickly retreated, and in the blink of an eye, I had vanished. Seeing this, the three were left standing in shock. Huh, where did he go? At that moment, I had already jumped out of the warehouse through the space. This skill allows me to move within any space within a 3-meter radius. With this ability, during the apocalypse, I can freely collect resources from various buildings. Facing powerful mutated beasts, I can still protect my life. Today's cost-free shopping spree ends here. Just then, the phone in my pocket suddenly vibrated. The government knows that the apocalypse is imminent, but to avoid causing panic among the populace, they lied, claiming it was merely a geological phenomenon causing natural disasters. At that moment, the goddess Zhang Xiaojian suddenly called me. How dare you leave the house sale hanging? Do you think any woman would still want to be with you after selling your house? I'll give you one more chance. Transfer the house to me immediately, or you can forget about ever marrying me. As soon as I heard this, I immediately turned off the device. In my past life, I served her for 80 long years, only for her to waltz into my home with her boyfriend, stabbing me without a second thought. She not only robbed me of all my resources, but treated me like I was nothing. To make matters worse, she publicly humiliated me to the point of death. Now that I'm alive once more, I swear to repay the pain I've endured 100-fold. The resources I need next will have to be purchased with money. Thus, I quickly dialed the number of Director Liu from the real estate company. However, Zhang Xiaojian and her lover were already waiting at the brokerage's door. As soon as I got out of the taxi, he unleashed a torrent of curses at me. Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting here? Yet, I chose to ignore him and strode confidently into the store. Seeing this, the man brandished a baseball bat to block my path, threatening me. You dare to sell our house? I swear I'll kill you right here. To my surprise, before he could finish his threat, I effortlessly lifted him up and slammed him hard against the ground. Zhang Xiaojian, that wretched woman, tried to rush to his aid, but I swiftly turned and slapped her across the face. Stunned, Zhang Xiaojian looked at me, incredulous. How dare you hit me? In response, I merely chuckled coldly. What of it I'm hitting both of you? Remember, this is my house, and how I choose to deal with it is none of your business. You have no right to dictate what happens here. At this point, Zhang Xiaojian had regained her composure and was exuding arrogance. You better kneel and apologize before I get angry, or you'll never have a chance to marry me. But what I gave them in return was nothing but a gaze filled with lethal intent. Instantly, the couple turned and fled. Before they left, they didn't forget to leave a threat behind. Just wait and see. Inside the company, Director Liu approached me immediately with a polite demeanor. Little brother, How much do you want to sell for? I only requested half the market value of the house. Hearing this, Director Liu smirked slyly. This house is worth over $1 million, and this foolish kid is selling it for just $700,000. It's an easy way to turn a profit of several $100,000. However, I insisted that full payment be made today and all at once. Compared to the resources in a post-apocalyptic world, this amount was trivial. Moments later, the $700,000 was swiftly transferred. Yet this sum was merely a drop in the bucket for the reserves needed for the end of days. I had to think of ways to earn even more money. Just then, I spotted an ad for a loan on a telephone pole on the side of the road. I needed to figure out how to make a lot of money first before I could tackle anything else. So, I headed to a mortgage company. However, Mr. Wang Dahai from the company informed me the maximum amount you can borrow is $500,000, and you need to place the property deed here first. Without hesitation, I laid the deed down on the table. I need $600,000 right now. It'll pay back both the principal and interest. Upon hearing this, Mr. Wang Dahai's eyes lit up with understanding. This kid must be a gambler. Once he's caught up in this, he'll sell even his own mother just to recover his funds. Let's see how I can make you pay. Without a moment's hesitation, he transferred the $600,000 into my account. Next, I headed to the finest 10-star hotel in the city. In my previous life, most buildings had crumbled before the catastrophe. Only the Lucheng Hotel stood strong until the end. From now on, this place would become my base, not a bad choice. Although it had stockpiled plenty of resources, there wasn't a single hot meal inside. So I went straight to the restaurant manager and told him that I wanted to order 1,000 banquet tables. As soon as I said that, the restaurant manager was immediately surprised, but still presented the banquet table standards. I immediately placed an order for 1,000 tables and mentioned that I could pay a 500,000 yuan deposit up front. Hearing this, he led me inside to take the deposit, already thinking of me as a wealthy heir. So he immediately had the idea of wanting to build a connection with me. Then he smiled and asked, "Mr. Su, are you preparing for a wedding?" "Yes, it's for the wedding." "By the way, book me a presidential suite as well," I replied. After that, I left the hotel in a relaxed mood. As for the remaining balance, in the abyss of fire, even a single piece of ice is worth billions. But not long after I left, Jiang Xiaojian and her lover found the restaurant manager and claimed that he was my boyfriend. "What was he doing here?" she demanded. The restaurant manager glanced at them. "This woman doesn't even have half my aura," he thought. "Why do the rich nowadays prefer this type brothing?" Despite his thoughts, he still told them about my order for 1,000 banquet tables. Upon hearing this, the couple was stunned. How could that poor guy possibly have 10 million? They wondered in disbelief. Seeing their displeasure, the restaurant manager immediately showed them a photo of the deposit I had made earlier. Could it be that Su Shen is actually a hidden wealthy heir? They wondered, their minds racing. They began to imagine that Su Shen was orchestrating all of this to create a grand fairy tale surprise for the wedding, a scene straight out of a magical story. Unexpectedly, they would have to carry out their plans on Su Shen, who they considered nothing more than a slave. Back home, Su Shen began to calculate his finances. After deducting the previous expenses, there were still 800,000 yuan left in his account. Clearly, this amount wasn't enough to purchase the necessary resources for the apocalypse. At this moment, if I didn't take out a loan, I'd really be doing myself a disservice. After a series of swift actions, the balance in my account instantly increased by 970,000 yuan. I now had the money to buy the necessary resources for the apocalypse. There was no time to waste. With this in mind, I immediately got to work. Items like heaters, ice makers, everything that the supermarket didn't have, I ordered online. Whether I could survive after the apocalypse would depend on these resources. So, I placed a deposit of 500,000 yuan to order 2,000 tons of dry ice and then contacted the ice factory to place the order. However, the factory required me to come in person to discuss the details. When I stepped into the ice factory, I immediately ran into Jiang Xiaojian and her best friend. In my previous life, they were the ones who badmouthed me behind my back and took over my house. Seeing them now, I immediately lost interest. I was about to leave when Zhang Xiaojian grabbed my arm. Upon realizing that I was a hidden wealthy heir, her attitude completely changed, and she began apologizing to me profusely. She even asked me to go shopping with her, but I didn't hold back and refused outright. Those two fools thought I was just playing hard to get and quickly called a taxi to follow me. Shortly after, I arrived at the Ronghua ice factory. After chatting for a while, the factory director assured me that there would be 2,000 tons of ice ready within 2 days. However, a deposit of 100,000 was required first. The following day, the goods would be delivered, and the remaining payment would be settled. Upon receiving the 100,000 deposit, the owner couldn't wipe the grin off his face. "Mr. Shi, buying so much ice, is it for a grand event? If there's a collaboration in the future, we could negotiate the price." Hearing this, I merely smiled. I was preparing to take it for charity in Lhasa. But just as I was about to leave, Zhang Xiaojun and her lover approached the factory director. Upon learning that I had ordered 800,000 blocks of ice, they were utterly shocked. This further confirmed their suspicions that Chen was undoubtedly a wealthy recluse. When they discovered that the ice would be used for charity in Lhasa, their astonishment only deepened. After preparing all the resources, I returned to the hotel, taking a moment to indulge in the luxurious life. However, upon glancing at the menu, I was taken aback. What a dish priced at an astronomical 17,000 DAT. After the waiter introduced the offerings, I learned that every dish was prepared directly by a Michelin chef. What exactly that entails, it depends on how they showcase it. I find it truly fascinating, so I decided to give it a try. After a brief wait, a girl with long pink hair approached, carrying dishes in her hands. From her words, I learned she was the chef of this restaurant, and the meal had been crafted specifically for me, tailored to my essence. Hearing this, I looked up, and to my surprise, it was her, the one once dubbed the Hell's Exorcist, Duan Kai. In this post-apocalyptic world, her culinary skills had the power to transform the mundane into the extraordinary. No one could resist the allure of the elegance she exuded. Yet, these dishes were concocted from elements altered within the body, posing real danger. Noticing my apprehension, Duan Yi immediately laughed awkwardly. "Are you afraid that I, a beauty, would poison your meal?" In response, I remained silent, quietly observing. If the apocalypse were truly upon us, who could know what toxins lurked within this food? After finishing my meal, I planned to visit the Century Bar for some entertainment. After all, this was the paradise for the extravagant. Some had spent millions without ever touching a woman. Yet, in just a few days, such vibrant places would cease to exist. Luckily, before the end arrived, I could still experience it once, nothing to regret. While conversing, I overheard her reveal that she had come here to drown her sorrows after being betrayed by her lover. She even exclaimed, "Not letting me sleep, yet he betrayed me." Isn't it perplexing how guys care so much about sleeping with women? After saying this, she downed her drink and slammed the cup onto the table. Then she asked me if I was single. I simply replied with an "aha," and she moved closer. "So, do you want to spend a wonderful night with me?" Just then, my two friends showed up. "Sao Sothun, are you daring to chase after women outside?" Instantly, I wrapped my arms around her. "I want to." Saying that, I took her hand and dashed upstairs. My two friends were hot on our heels, unwilling to let go. I pulled her up to the second floor, but I was quicker, yanking her into a room. I quickly locked the door, holding her tightly in my embrace. She shyly mentioned that this was her first time. Hearing that made me feel a bit awkward. Soon after, a light slap landed on my face. "You've been drinking too much. I am a principled person, not one to go astray." Out of kindness, I advised her that during these days, it's best not to go out and to stock up on some food. Although rejecting her left me with a twinge of regret, with my infatuated heart, I wasn't inclined to frequent places like this. Moreover, there was no future in it. I then slammed the door shut. As I stepped outside, I found the two girls searching for me, inch by inch. Even if I wanted to be with her tonight, their presence made it nearly impossible. In the blink of an eye, morning arrived. The items I ordered began arriving one by one. The couple brought their friends along, drawn in by the aroma. "Sothun, what on earth are you planning, Williams?" But when they saw the banquet table and the red carpet laid out, their fantasies started to soar. They assumed I was doing this to propose to her. Just because you propose doesn't mean she'll say yes. This would depend on how you present yourself. Then, Zhang Tuthin approached and asked what I had prepared all these things for. I merely shot her a glance, choosing not to respond. If you want to know, first help me get these items. Sothun, are you joking? I, Zhang Tuthin, never do heavy chores. At that moment, a close friend beside her reminded, Sothun is testing you to see if you're worthy of being a millionaire's wife. Hearing this made Zhang Tuthin blush. It's fine, Sothun. I'm not the type of woman who fusses over appearances. To succeed, one must be capable. If I can pass Sothun's challenge today, a grand proposal is certain to follow. Her friend looked at me with shyness. Sothun, please let me help too. Believing that rich girls like men, even if I didn't become a millionaire's wife, being a little darling would be just fine. At this moment, Sothun merely smiled. Free labor shouldn't be passed up. With so many items, even if the producer sent someone over, it would take forever to move everything. We were busy from dawn until sunset, completing just as the sun dipped below the horizon. Zhang Tuthin was so exhausted that she was panting heavily. Damn it, I'm the only one working and haven't even had a bite to eat. When I marry you, you must turn all your money into mine. Her friend was so worn out she could barely stand. Chen, that scoundrel, dared to make me work like a beast of burden. That chunk of ice weighs at least over 100 pounds. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoshan is still dreaming of becoming a lady. Everything has been moved. It's time for you to propose to me. Don't you think wealthy guests should be arriving soon, but they're not getting the outcome they desire? I've already rewarded the driver and the workers with 10,000 each. The remaining amount will be supplemented as per the contract within a week. Oh, what a generous boss. Zhang Xiaoshan, exhausted, leaned against the doorframe, swaying slightly. Hey, Chen, at this hour, have you forgotten something? Hearing that, I lazily glanced at her. Ah, right. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten. Thank you all for your help. If there's nothing else, you can head home now. Upon finishing, Zhang Xiaoxian immediately panicked. Chen, don't joke with me. You've prepared so much, surely it's not just to propose to me. Bring the guests out, we shall wed and live happily ever after. After saying that, I bluntly replied, what wedding? I've sold my house and am drowning in debt just to buy these things. If you want to, it's not impossible. Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaoshan was so furious that her face turned red. How can that be? With over 10 million in banquet expenses and tens of thousands in living costs, how could you be broke? So that's what you meant. All of this is merchandise prepared for a relief operation by a big shot. It will be sent to Alashan later. I'm just here to lend a hand. After this explanation, Zhang Xiaoxian erupted in rage, unable to hide her ugly expression. You scumbag, so you've been deceiving me from the start. After saying this, she rushed at me with an angry face, but I simply sidestepped and coldly remarked, then tell me, what have I deceived you about? Instantly, Zhang Xiaoxian stumbled and fell to the ground. Chen, you scoundrel. You're clearly not from a wealthy family. Don't even think about marrying me. Hearing this, I looked at her with disdain. Who would want a pragmatic girl like you? Even if you were free, I wouldn't need you. After that, Zhang Xiaoshan was so furious, she looked like she was about to explode. Chen, you will pay for what you've done today. With that, she turned and left, while her friend pointed at me. Chen, this time you're definitely going to face trouble. Those two foolish girls won't go easy on you until the end of days. After that, I locked the storeroom tight. All the supplies were ready. Now, all that's left is to wait for the apocalypse to arrive. I quickly stored all the goods into my space. In the blink of an eye, it was evening. After I turned down that couple, they were clinging to Wang Dahai all day. Sister Qian, Chen dares to treat you like this. You should break up with him soon. I'll make sure Wang Ge teaches him a lesson. Coincidentally, while having a meal, I witnessed the whole scene. This girl really can't tell the difference. She can swallow anything whole. At the same time, that couple has also discovered my presence. This guy is the one who laid hands on me. Seeing me, Wang laughed lightly. It turns out I've found you, just as I was looking for you. I didn't expect you to dare to touch my brother. This fool has always been like this, and now he owes 600,000. Tomorrow is the day to settle up. Jiang Shaoxian, the one who has been wronged, couldn't help but tease. Xiao Wang, you will definitely never repay that debt in this lifetime. Luckily, you have nothing to do with him. Hearing this, I wiped my mouth. Even a meal isn't peaceful. Tomorrow, that kid must pay, and you're still here having fun. You surely don't see me, Wang Dahai, as anything worthwhile, do you? Don't tell me you think you can earn 600,000 tonight. As soon as he finished speaking, the pampered dog immediately shouted, You can't earn anything, Wangi. Don't waste your time with him, just handle him. Just then, the restaurant manager approached, saying, Take it easy, don't cause a ruckus. Otherwise, I'll give you a chance. Right now, if this kid kneels down and apologizes to my brother, everything will be fine. The manager quietly asked, Mr. Su, what's going on? I nonchalantly replied, Nothing much. Just a few insignificant pests. At that, Wang Dahai immediately flew into a rage. Kid, am I giving you face? You're dead today? Even the king of hell can't save you. Just then, a burly man walked over. What are you doing? Who gave you permission to cause trouble here? Wang Dahai's expression changed immediately. Brother Kuang, why are you here? Kuang coldly replied, I have important business today. Anyone causing trouble here will have to face me. Kuang, on the surface, is a famous businessman in Chengdu, but behind the scenes, he has extensive connections. His influence is not to be trifled with. Wang Dahai couldn't afford to offend him. No worries, Brother Kuang. You just take care of your business. In his lifetime, he was a significant force in Chengdu. Even the Hell Extermination Division was under his command. Previously, when the apocalypse began, the Newton Hotel was the first to undergo transformation. Now it's clear that Kuang's rise to power as the human world's ruler is due to those early changes. If that's the case, then I'm sorry. General Manager Ton, holding a glass of red wine, smiled and said, I have heard of you, Miss Duan, for a long time. Today I finally have the chance to meet you. He raised his glass. Let's toast first. Duan Ass stared at the glass of wine in front of her, feeling confused about what to do. Why aren't you drinking, Miss Duan? Could it be that there's something wrong with the wine? This is General Manager Ton, a well-known figure in the business world. We've prepared a banquet for you. Why not give it a try? But before he could finish, he was interrupted by General Manager Ton. In Chengdu, no one dares to refuse the wine I pour. Resigned, Cao Kung could only lower his head, not knowing what to say. Duan Ah thought to herself that Cao Kung is truly detestable. To curry favor with Tonduk Bao, he has harmed me. He relies on his power in Chengdu to wreak havoc, not knowing how many girls he has hurt. It seems today he has taken notice of me. There was definitely something wrong with this drink, but what could I do? Just then, a brilliant flash of red light erupted behind me. I glanced over, recalling how in my previous life, Sothun and I had hidden in a bunker to escape the flames. Little did I expect him to follow me here in this life. The opportunity for revenge had finally arrived. While everyone was joyfully splashing in the pool, the moonlight above suddenly erupted into a terrifying surge of energy, causing the temperature to skyrocket. People began to scream, It's too hot! Too hot! They didn't hesitate, they barreled toward the hotel. A few of them burst through the doors like rockets, shouting frantically, It's too hot! Too hot! Upon seeing the fish tank, they were like cornered dogs, diving one by one into the bathtub. Ah, this feels so good, they exclaimed. This fish tank belongs to me. Everyone get outside now. Yet, Vung Daihai was so disoriented from the heat that he felt like his mind was spinning. His face and body were covered in countless blisters. Witnessing this scene, the man was filled with a frantic rage. Hai Ka, we should head to the hospital. At the same time, Cao Kung also sensed something was amiss. General Director Ton, I feel like something is off. We should go downstairs and check. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the lobby. Everyone, please calm down. We've contacted the rescue team, they'll be here shortly. Cao Kung asked his subordinate, What's going on? The sergeant replied, I'm not sure, I just saw the moonlight suddenly brighten, and then the temperature shot up. The media reported nearly 100 casualties. Witnessing the dire situation, General Director Ton immediately dialed Minister Trio. I'm at the Lukthan Hotel. Can you send someone to fetch me? Understood. Damn it, they want to stay safe up there. If the power isn't the issue, then there's no available manpower. It seemed the situation was escalating. Meanwhile, Vung Dai-hai was strategizing. With the heat like this outside, how can I get to the hospital? Suddenly, he remembered his little driver. Dao? All right, Hai-ka, I'm on my way. However, as he drove out of the garage, he was blinded by a blinding light. Why is it so bright at this hour? Just then, there was a loud bang. A tire had burst. Cursing under his breath, he got out of the car to investigate. He immediately reported the situation to Vung Dai-hai. Hai-ka, all the tires are blown. I can't go on. But soon, he felt as if his feet were glued to the ground. It turned out his shoes had made contact with the surface, which had begun to evaporate. This caused Dao to lose his balance and fall hard to the ground. Just as he tried to stand up, it was too late. All he could hear was the hissing sound in his ears. On the other hand, Vung Dai-hai could also hear the sizzling of meat being grilled. At this moment, Dao had turned to ashes. Meanwhile, I was basking in the comfort of the presidential suite. Not only was the air conditioning blissfully cool, but I also had my own private pool. I was completely unconcerned about the scorching heat outside. At that moment, the temperature had risen to a blistering 75 degrees, with the ground reaching an unbearable 100 degrees. This catastrophic event had claimed the lives of hundreds. The power company could no longer endure the heat. With a deafening crash, the power station erupted into flames. At that moment, Vung Dai-hai realized the severity of the situation. While everyone was still debating strategies, suddenly the room was plunged into darkness. Damn it, the power is out at this time. Everyone felt like chickens trapped in boiling water. Vung Dai-hai understood that they needed a plan. Just then, Teo-kien suddenly suggested, I remember there's a swimming pool in So-thun's room. We could take that over. Meanwhile, So-thun was swimming in the large pool. In his previous life, the power company encountered a major crisis due to lack of maintenance, which led to this catastrophe. No matter how much manpower was invested, a disaster was unavoidable. All electrical users were plunged into darkness. Fortunately, I had chosen a room with air conditioning and had prepared a large reserve of batteries, ensuring the temperature remained comfortable. Along with that, there were blocks of ice at the ready. It was pure bliss. Suddenly, my stomach growled loudly. With a flick of my wrist, a lavish banquet appeared before me. The first day of the apocalypse was simply about enjoying breakfast. I wondered when Cao Kung's opportunity would arrive. Just then, there was a sudden knock at the door. As I opened it, a chilling breeze rushed into Vung Dai-hai's throat. This brat even has air conditioning, I remarked coldly. What do you want? A man pointed into the room, shouting, In there, not only is there electricity and air conditioning, but there's food too. After he spoke, everyone rushed, pushing each other to get in. We're dying from the heat. Why should you enjoy it alone? Get out of this room if you don't want trouble. At that moment, Vung Dai-hai was still screaming for me to come out. Let me pay back the interest for those days, or I'll throw you out. Seeing this, I didn't hesitate. A gunshot rang out, hitting Vung Dai-hai in the stomach. Watching the wound on his belly, he collapsed to the ground, his face pale. Anyone who dares to step forward will face death. I will kill your dogs. He couldn't believe that I had a gun in my hand, only able to grit his teeth and whimper. You're good, I'll admit it. Just wait. But as soon as his words ended, I fired another shot. Instantly, Vung Dai-hai received another wound on his leg. You're leaving, or you're leaving. Why so much talk? If you want to die, just say it. I'll count to 3, then disappear from my sight. Meanwhile, Cao Laodai dared to dream of restoring order. How could such a large hotel lack food? The manager explained, a few days ago, So-thun had ordered over 1,000 banquet tables worth of ingredients, which were nearly depleted. At this moment, General Manager Ton unexpectedly commanded, Then bring all the remaining food and water up here for me. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire hall erupted into chaos. Having money is great, huh? Why should we give it to you? This was denying us a chance to survive. At that moment, Vung Dai-hai was helped out, limping down the steps. In these times, having a gun is rare. It seems like that guy up there is a formidable figure. At this moment, Xiaojian couldn't help but mention, his room not only has electricity but also air conditioning and a large swimming pool. The entire hall immediately buzzed with excitement. "Are you serious?" someone asked. Xiaojian nodded confidently. "I saw it with my own eyes. They can testify." Hearing this, everyone quickly started heading toward Su Shen's room. Gao Qiang, meanwhile, instructed his subordinates to follow closely. "Watch my expression and act accordingly. I don't need to teach you how to handle this, do I?" Gao Qiang instructed his subordinates. When someone knocked on the door, I opened it. "Is there something you need?" I asked. One of the young men replied, "Comrade, can we have a little chat? Maybe let us in to cool off a bit." But at that moment, a chubby boy saw the plate of fried chicken on the table and, without hesitation, rushed towards it. "Oh my gosh, fried chicken, I want fried chicken," he exclaimed. In the apocalypse, I didn't care about manners or age, so I immediately kicked him, sending him flying out of the room. "Are you all seriously asking me for something?" I said, glaring at the others. "How could you hurt a child like that?" someone exclaimed. I responded coldly, "Control your children, or I won't hesitate to help you out." My words clearly caught the attention of many. One of them sneered, "You don't deserve to sit in this room." With that, he charged at me like a storm. "Let's throw him out together," someone shouted, but I remained unfazed. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. A bullet whizzed through the crowd and struck the forehead of someone behind me. Though I was alone, I reminded them, "Your lives are just as singular as mine." At this moment, Wang Dahai, having lost too much blood and suffering from a high fever that led to an infected wound, had already stopped breathing. "Su Shen, you bastard, I won't let you get away with this," someone shouted. Just then, there was another knock at the door. "Brother Chen, I know you can't bring yourself to shoot us," a voice called out. "Have you forgotten how much I love you? Just let us in, and whatever you want to do, well, cooperate without question," the voice pleaded. I opened the door with a smirk. Such deep sisterly affection. "If that's the case, then come in." Just then, an enraged man rushed forward. "Get out of my way, I want to kill you, Su Shen," he shouted. I looked at him calmly and said, "If you want to die, don't blame me. Anyone who crosses this threshold without my permission will pay with their life." "Welcome. Next in line," I said, my voice icy. By this point, Xiaojian and the others were terrified, their courage completely drained. "It's warm outside, we're not coming in," they stammered. I coldly replied, "If that's the case, then leave quickly. If you don't want to leave, that's fine too. Just be prepared to leave your lives here." At that moment, a rescue vehicle arrived beneath the hotel. Fully equipped soldiers in protective gear stepped out. "Excuse me, is Academician Liu Zhengguo here?" one of them asked. "Please have Academician Liu put on protective gear and follow us. The rest of you, there's no need to panic. At midnight, the temperature will be at its lowest point of the day. At that time, everyone can head to the rescue point at Silicon Square on their own," one of the soldiers announced. Hearing that there was a rescue plan, everyone couldn't help but cheer in relief. "That's wonderful," they shouted in joy. "It seems that the government hasn't given up on us just yet." Suddenly, Director Sun from behind shouted furiously, "I am Team Leader Zombie Sun Debao. Bring the protective gear here, and he'll give you 1 billion. As soon as he finished his words, he was immediately apprehended by the guards. "Professor Liu is our nation's top geologist. Please, do not obstruct us." Faced with the armed soldiers, Gao Qiang could only stand there, bewildered. At that moment, Jiang Shan tugged at a soldier's arm. "Soldier, wait! There's a crazed killer upstairs. He has already killed many people." Gao Qiang and the others nodded in agreement. "That's right. That guy is armed. We can't let him escape." Upon hearing this, the soldier removed his helmet. "If that's the case, lead me up to take a look. I want to know who you truly are." Seeing their goal achieved, Zhang Xiaojian wore a wicked smile. Once Shizhen is gone, she would relish the freedom in that room. Meanwhile, Xiaofeng had stealthily approached the door, but discovered a hidden camera concealed in a flower pot. In an instant, a flash grenade and then a tear gas grenade were thrown in succession. Seeing this, Xiaofeng couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh, mother!" The blinding light made his titan-like eyes shine even brighter, while the tear gas brought tears streaming down his face. Awaiting him was a dream of Shizhen. When he picked up the ID card to look, he saw his name was Liu Xiaofeng, deputy team leader of the Special Task Force. Upon waking up, Liu Xiaofeng questioned, "Who exactly are you?" I replied, I'm just a graduate student, and I got the firearms during my trip to the Middle East. You probably know that the government has set up relief points for residents to reach by midnight. Hearing this, Liu Xiaofeng was immediately taken aback. How do you know this? I simply smiled and said, because I experienced it in my past life. Although the temperature will drop significantly at midnight, if exposed to moonlight for more than a minute, one will faint. Many will perish on their way to the relief points. Liu Xiaofeng conceded that this was indeed possible, but without such measures, people would die even faster. They'll have to fend for themselves. At that moment, I patted his shoulder. In fact, thick blankets and down jackets can also provide insulation. If you don't fall, your chances of survival can greatly improve. With that, I aimed my gun at the back of his head, and Liu Xiaofeng immediately signaled to his men to hold on. Wait until I finish reporting about the blankets before you kill me, he said. Rest assured, I won't call for backup, but right after that, I cut the ropes binding him. Liu Xiaofeng was quite puzzled. I respect the government's efforts. Therefore, this time I will spare you, but I won't forgive you if you provoke me again. Liu Xiaofeng countered, Aren't you afraid? He'll call for backup after leaving. Hearing this, I pointed above. Take a good look at what that is. It turned out to be a machine gun with a facial recognition camera. Where did you get this? Someone demanded. I replied calmly, I already told you, it's from the Middle East. As long as it operates, I'll be the only one to survive in this room. But in this chaotic situation, I doubt any of you have the time to pay attention to me. Not long after, Liu Xiaofeng emerged wearing the protective suit. Damn it, that guy upstairs. Could he really have some powerful backing? Even the soldiers couldn't touch him. He muttered angrily, then punched Gao Chang hard in the face. What am I paying you for? He shouted. Seeing Sun Debao act so arrogantly, Gao Chang's men couldn't hold back their anger any longer. Boss, how long do we have to keep enduring this? One of Gao Chang's men muttered in frustration. But Gao Chang looked troubled. We can't make a move yet. Once order is restored, we'll need to leverage his connections, he said, trying to sound rational. I looked at him with contempt in my eyes. The apocalypse has already arrived, and yet Brother Gao is still dreaming of restoring order, I remarked, dripping with sarcasm. Hearing this, Gao Chang's subordinates were instantly enraged. What did you just say, kid? Do you want me to kill you right now? One of them snarled, stepping forward aggressively. But Gao Chang quickly intervened, holding him back. Seeing me come down, he couldn't help but feel a sense of fear and asked, Why did you come down here? I replied calmly. Oh, nothing much. Just wanted to discuss a little deal with Brother Gao. Then I casually poured some ice cubes out of my insulated cup. The sight of the ice made the two of them jump in surprise. Ice cubes, Brother Gao. If he's got ice, he must have a lot of other good stuff in that room, one of them exclaimed, eyes wide with realization. Kill him, and everything will be ours, one of them muttered. But before they could act, I swiftly pressed the gun to his neck. The long-haired man immediately raised his hands, cooperating without hesitation. Gao Chang burst into laughter. Brother Su, don't bother with these rough types. Let's discuss the deal first, he said, trying to diffuse the tension. After finalizing the terms, Gao Chang greedily inhaled the coolness of the ice cubes. Damn, this is so refreshing, he muttered, clearly satisfied. He had never imagined that something as simple as an ice cube could bring such gratification. The two others silently decided to take advantage of the moment when I let my guard down to kill me. But just then, the atmosphere shifted. Sun Debao cursed loudly and kicked him hard. You've got these nice ice cubes, and you dare to enjoy them all by yourself. If there's a next time, I'll kill you, he spat, then punched Gao Chang in the head. Little did Sun Debao know, thanks to Su Shen's words, Gao Chang had already begun plotting to kill Sun Debao. The seeds of betrayal had been planted. Meanwhile, Sun Debao remained leisurely analyzing the military situation. He inadvertently noticed someone behind him glaring at him with a dark expression. Isn't that Duanya? He muttered in surprise. In this heat, and you still refuse to take off your clothes. Indeed, you're quite arrogant, but I like girls like you. Now come with me, he said, but Duanya slapped him across the face. You scoundrel, don't touch me, she retorted. Seeing this, Sun Debao grew furious. You idiot, I'm right here, he shouted, his anger palpable. At that time, everyone will get a taste of it, he continued with a sinister grin, looking at her drenched appearance. My big blade has long been eager. Let me help you take everything off. A cold voice echoed from behind him. I think, Sun Debao, you've gone too far. Seeing Gao Chang, Sun Debao scolded him. Gao Chang, do you think I'm showing you any respect? Do you even know who you're talking to? But waiting for him was the cold barrel of Gao Chang's gun. Su Shen was right, Gao Chang said, his voice steady. Can't you see the chaos unfolding outside while you're here rambling? I've endured your nonsense for far too long, so it's time for you to meet your end. His cold gaze swept across the crowd in this moment. I, Gao Chang, am the one calling the shots. Others must either head to the rescue point or perish here. At this, Duanya was taken aback. Does Gao Chang really intend to claim this territory? Meanwhile, I stood silently from the upper floor, observing. It seemed those words had struck a chord with Gao Chang. In his previous life, he was the overlord of this place. If things progress rapidly now, could it be that Gao Chang's opportunity will fall into my hands? Before long, Zhang Xiaojian and her close friend began pleading for water from Gao Chang, vowing that no matter what, they would stand by his side. I hurriedly poured the remaining ice water for the two. If that's the case, you can follow me, but whether you survive or not depends on your own merits. The spear wielder beside me questioned, aren't we supposed to head to the rescue point? Moreover, our supplies are running low. Why should we protect these useless people? At this, Gao Chang let out a chilling laugh. Suo Chen, don't we need a few hands on deck? Why hold on to some pawns? In just a moment, midnight loomed, and Zhang Xiaoxian and her friend finally prepared to leave this cursed place. But just then, Zhang Mao yanked their blanket away. You've had your ice water from the boss and still want to leave. You're mistaken. Why not stay and chat with the big shot a little? Didn't you say you'd do anything? Meanwhile, everyone was already on their way to the rescue point. Since Gao Chang took control of the rations, they'd never received any food or water. They'd rather die of thirst in this hotel than risk it all for a glimmer of hope at the rescue point. But outside, the heat was worse than they had imagined, even with wood strapped to their shoes. They could still feel the searing heat of the ground. Suddenly, an elderly woman stumbled and collapsed, blood oozing from her mouth and hands. The others had no time to concern themselves with someone else's life or death. It wasn't long before several had perished from falls on the peninsula. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoxian began to panic. Brother, please don't make a fuss. We will cooperate with you. Hearing this, Zhang Mao mockingly exclaimed, so these girls are finally feeling ashamed. Are they afraid of me or the monsters? But just then, a pair of red claws burst through the window. It turned out to be the zombies, Wang Dahai and Tang Dabao, who had crashed in. The scorching heat had transformed them into flesh-eating undead. Meanwhile, Gao Chang and the others were clearly terrified. If they were bitten, would they turn into zombies? Gao Chang, with his muscular frame, tightened his grip on the neck of the canine man. Let's see what happens. But at that moment, I stepped forward slowly. Everyone, stand back. Let me handle these two. Zhang Mao looked at me in astonishment. Was he really planning to face the zombies alone? Gao Chang wants to put a knife into the zombie's body, and we will eliminate it together. These corpses will mutate after burning, but they will not be infected with viruses. They are like Hanba in the classic of mountains and seas. So Chen called them Hanba. These Hanbas actually retain some memories from their past lives, which can be said to have been killed and buried by Gao Chang in his previous life. Therefore, his beliefs made him the first Hanba, and Gao Chang is exactly his target for revenge, Wang Dahai. I killed him and became another Hanba, so Gao Chang's opportunity is not Wang Dahai, but Hanba's buried treasure. I, Chen, must hold this opportunity in my hand. After speaking, I split the buried treasure in half. The next moment, a purple gold and silver fell from the buried treasure's body. It turned out to be a gold and silver with extraordinary physical fitness. If that's the case, I will reluctantly smile. The remaining Hanba let you slowly deal with Gao Chang. With a roar in classical Chinese, he tightly gripped the bastard's neck and stood up for me. After speaking, he forcefully pushed the guy into Wang Dahai's arms and let us fly together. As long as he took out his weapon, I would drink in the room. In a post-apocalyptic world, occasional mutated monsters may appear. A diamond that is not easily found among 100 diamonds. Then he swallowed a diamond and a glass of wine. His eyes were filled with a strong red light, indicating that he was beginning to absorb the energy of the diamond. This feeling stimulated every cell in the body, burning every inch of flesh with heat. Suddenly, a strong pain struck, and he couldn't help but scream. Soon, he fainted because he couldn't take it anymore. The classical Chinese side had already dealt with Wang Dahai, but he had also exhausted all the water. At this moment, he grabbed one of his long legs. "You're about to run, bitch. Do you believe he'll break your leg? I can't see. My best friend said Big Brother doesn't have water. Well, die of thirst, but I have a way to deal with Chen. Zhang Xiaoshan is his fiancée. If we kill him at the door, Chen will definitely open the door. You may suddenly attack him, but Zhang Xiaoshan told us not to do so. I can cooperate with you unconditionally, but now I want to eat meat." After hearing this, classical Chinese gave Zhang Xiaoshan a cold glance. "If you want to eat meat, do it yourself." Zhang Xiaoshan looked shocked. What did you say was the meat on his body? Then she seemed to have made a decision. She quickly snatched a short knife from classical Chinese's hand. She walked towards her best friend without hesitation. Now her best friend is obviously scared. "We are best friends. You can't do this." But Zhang just looked at her coldly. "So don't blame me for being heartless." With those words, she plunged the dagger into her best friend Vungon's abdomen, leaving everyone nearby in shock. These women, when determined, could be more terrifying than any man. At that moment, Jiang Tiuthian had spiraled into a frenzy. "When I've had my fill, I will take your life, Sothun." At this point, Vungon suggested that Duan Ngui take charge of the slaughter. The brothers needed strength to face Sothun. "Where is Duan Ngui? Hurry and find him." Meanwhile, my own abilities had also completed their transformation. Could this be a physical power? I could feel it vividly. My body enhanced its heat resistance, and my muscles and strength surged in response. I was brimming with explosive energy. But just then, I caught a glimpse of Duan Ngui. He mentioned that Vungon and the others had gone insane. This was his only hope for survival. "Please let me in, will you?" But I suddenly remembered my current state, completely unclothed. "Is something wrong?" Duan Ngui didn't answer, just stared at me with a dazed expression. I quickly threw on some clothes, feeling embarrassed, and coughed awkwardly. "Sorry, my resources are limited. Besides, we've only just met once. I can't take you in just because you're beautiful." Duan Ngui then clarified that he was not merely a chef, but also an outstanding student who graduated from Southwest Medical University with a license and 3 years of surgical experience. Hearing this, Tothun pondered for a moment. In his past life, Duan Ngui was a resilient woman who had a collaborative relationship with Vungon. Although he had considered winning her over, the current atmosphere felt somewhat awkward. Being a doctor was indeed a great temptation, but now resources were scarce, and no one knew if they would survive until tomorrow. Vungon immediately said, "As long as you don't kick me out, I can do anything for you." I smiled at that moment. "If the beautiful Duan has said so, then let's consider this your home." Duan Ngui suddenly realized he had misspoken. Everything that should and shouldn't be said had been spoken. I then shifted my tone. "But I need to warn you first, the only thing you need to do in front of me is to obey, without any other thoughts. Otherwise, I invite you to. Su Tianxing, rest assured, I've never doubted your abilities and awakening." Vungon looked at me with an unkind gaze. "Then take off your clothes immediately." Duan Ngui seemed a bit doubtful. "Su Tianxing, are we starting now?" "Of course, but first, you need to shower." Through the camera, I monitored her every move. This action wasn't for peeping, it was to ensure she had no ill intentions. After her shower, she changed into a new outfit. "Tioka, this outfit seems a bit tight." Seeing this, I feigned seriousness. "Not at all, it fits perfectly." "It's truly perfect." But just then, there was a frantic knock at the door. "Sunun, open the door. Save me. If I don't get out, I'll die." Beside me, Duan Ngui reminded, "We must not open the door. Vungon has already devoured someone. If we open the door, we might meet our doom." Hearing that, excitement surged within me. "You said they've turned to cannibalism." "Well, that makes things simpler." Without a second thought, I flung the door open. knowing that the remnants of humanity in Vun Gon had long since vanished. Sothun, at last, you dare to step into the light. Just as I was about to step out, a henchman of Vun Gon lunged at me from his hiding spot, knife in hand, ready to strike. But I swiftly seized his arm, twisting it back and pinning him down. A sharp crack echoed as I broke his arm with ease. Vun Gon watched in disbelief. How could this kid react so quickly? Meanwhile, Jang Tuthian had freed herself from her bonds and dashed towards me. In the blink of an eye, she was right in front of me. Sothun, save me. Little did I know, I had tightened my grip around her throat, because I knew that once they turned to cannibalism, their bodies would transform, fangs sprouting forth. Clearly, they were no longer human. The world had plunged into chaos. Surviving, whether as man or beast, was all that mattered. At this moment, Jang Tuthian, held tightly by me, let out a wild laugh. It smells so delicious. After indulging, I felt a surge of strength. As Sothun, I could hardly wait any longer. But before I could finish my thought, I kicked her away, sending her crashing through the glass and plummeting down. To my surprise, Jang Tuthian managed to grasp the window ledge with one hand. Sothun, I won't let you escape so easily. But then she realized something was amiss. The outside temperature was too high for her to endure. At the same moment, Chang Mao charged toward me, and I couldn't let him have the chance to draw his gun. Vun Gon looked down on us. Do you really need to waste bullets on trash like you, Sothun? Don't underestimate others too much. With that, he lunged at me, but I had no fear. Wasting a bullet on you is no concern for me. Vun Gon signaled to his henchmen to scatter. These mutated beings were not only strong, but their reflexes and speed had increased exponentially. While Vun Gon and his gang were ready, my bullet would surely miss them. Then you shall die. But just as I finished speaking, I grasped Chang Mao's head tightly. Are you done talking? If so, you can go die now. With that, I slammed Chang Mao's head into the ground. At that moment, a bald man wielding a knife rushed toward me. Seeing this, I immediately grabbed his arm. In that instant, Vun Gon charged at me, delivering a powerful punch. But in the next heartbeat, I seized his throat, lifting him up and smashing him against the wall. Just then, a long tongue, stretching 40 meters, unexpectedly appeared behind me. Turning around, I realized it was Jang Tuthian. She roared at me, astonished at her own transformation. It seemed I haunted her thoughts. Then, I swiftly snapped Vun Gon's neck, and Jang Tuthian screamed at me, her body crackling with unsettling sounds. If you don't let go, I will kill you again. I served you for 730 days. I worked day and night for you for 2 years and gave you 51,000 in return, which is a cruel betrayal. You don't even consider me an outsider. You just killed me with that bastard. Now that I'm resurrected, you must pay 100 or even 1,000 times the price. He dealt with the classical Chinese gang alone, but in front of Tanju, it felt very dangerous. If Chu Chen can handle it, in order to be with him in the future, I need to find a way to let him know that I am not a burden. At the same time, I also realized his behavior. Turning around to look at me, he didn't know where he got a small whip from. Seeing this scene, I was confused. Now, do you still want to play a training game? What's going on? I just wanted to help you. Now, when you hear our conversation, you scream. Do you treat me like air? After saying this, she angrily charged towards me. I just gave her a disdainful glance. Not worried at all that she might hit my chest. Seeing this, Duanwei next to me was startled and covered his mouth. But Tanju's seemingly clever attack only tore my shirt, and my body was not injured at all, which made Tanju very angry. She hysterically reached her paws towards my neck, but I stood there motionless, letting her attack. Then she opened her mouth like a cherry and bit my shoulder tightly. Her teeth couldn't even hit my skin by a millimeter. So I mocked your teeth just to show off. It's my turn. After speaking, I grabbed your hand and punched you hard. I said coldly, "Are the marbles ready?" With just a click sound, his arm was immediately torn off. Chinmu's body fell to the ground, screaming in pain, and at the same time, I returned to the ground. At first, I just wanted you to taste the bitterness of the end of the world. But if you want to commit suicide, I must satisfy you today. But the next scene surprised me when Chinmu stretched out his 40-meter-long tail. It rolled up the body next to it, opened its cherry-like mouth, and swallowed it inside. Soon the body was left with only one shoe. Then, its severed arm began to move. Then he screamed angrily at me, "Chu, you can't kill me." This was something I didn't expect, making Duanwei almost scream. "What should we do now?" "But I don't care. I think it's great. It means you won't die so easily. It means I can torture you many times. If I can make you lose this regenerative ability, your survival ability in the end of the world will be greatly improved." Just as Chinmu's voice came again, I rushed forward and grabbed his arm. "You've turned into a zombie, yet you're still so strong. Let's see how many times your body can regenerate." With that, I immediately tore off his left arm. "Now let's move on to your right arm." Chinmu is still struggling, but I haven't given him a chance. Without hesitation, I cut off his right arm, stomped him on the ground, and then your tail and legs. This will be your first time, but only for a moment. Chinmu's severed limbs and tail began to move, and soon he returned to his original state. Now he could only lie on the ground in despair, panting heavily, but I just smiled lightly, and then I did it again. In Duanwei's surprise, I tore apart Chinmu with both hands. Chinmu had been tortured to the point where he had no strength to resist. Thinking about what he had done to me in the past, I did it for the 4th time. 5th time, the 8th time, even the tongue and intestines were torn off. The 20th time, all the internal organs were dug out, as if everything except for the head could be regenerated. You have the face to ask me why. Since I met you, I have served you for 2 years. During these 2 years, I gave you 51,000. I spent a lot of money but got something. All of this was voluntary. I didn't force you. Listen, my eyes have turned cold. You didn't force me, but you kept giving me hope and cold water. Do you know how painful I have been in the past 2 years? You hooked up with that man for money, shamelessly humiliated me, and died in front of you. Now all I want is revenge, I said calmly. From now on, you won't have another chance to harm anyone. Thinking about this, I slowly closed my eyes. Duanya, worried, asked, "Sushen, are you all right?" I turned back to her with a cold gaze. "Are you ready?" When I said these words, Duanwei looked puzzled. "What were you ready for?" I held Duanwei in my arms. I was very brave just now. "What should you reward me for?" And at the post-apocalyptic rescue station, the temperature has already returned to normal. A group of people are approaching the rescue site, so the captain turned around and looked back. This is not a living person, but a combination of dead bodies. Immediately organize people to evacuate the rescue site. I want to stop them. This is fate. Hurry, look towards the Luchang Hotel. After a relentless assault on Duangui, I have finally tamed this spirited little steed. To keep up, I must fulfill 2 essential conditions. 1, the person must hold value, and 2, they must wholly obey commands. With that, I am ready to venture out. In my previous life, many were haunted by the dread of reaching the rescue station, which ultimately sparked a wave of attacks on these very checkpoints. Countless civilians and soldiers fell victim to assaults from the undead, leading to a significant stockpile of weapons falling into civilian hands, thus giving rise to various factions. The vehicle ahead came to a halt. Indeed, these thugs are nothing but marauders. But with my fiery temperament, I will not show them mercy. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, crashing straight into the hoodlums, sending them flying. After that, I sped away. The scorching heat of the fire zone had caused the walls to crack, compounded by the onslaught from the undead. Ultimately, this led to the collapse of the subway station. The death toll is estimated to be in the thousands. It is a pity that not everyone possesses sharp wits. Dealing with each of them would consume an inordinate amount of time. Therefore, I decided to assess the situation at the school. However, as soon as I stepped into the school's laboratory building, I was confronted by a gang of thugs. "Throw your backpack down," they shouted. I reached into my backpack and pulled out a chicken leg. Instantly, the thugs perked up with excitement. It had been days since they'd seen such a delicacy, let alone enjoyed a bite. Hearing this, I simply smiled gently and tossed the chicken leg onto the ground. Immediately, the 3 thugs lunged forward, bickering. "That's mine, back off." But in a split second, I used a fine thread to yank the chicken leg back to me. This left the 3 thugs frozen in shock. Seeing this, they erupted in anger. "You dare toy with us." With that, they brandished baseball bats, ready to strike. But I swiftly drew my gun. Bang, bang, bang. 3 shots, intending to take down all 3. Oddly enough, I remember in my previous life there weren't so many fools like these. Could it be that my earlier warnings have led to such a scenario? After that, I made my way to the reptilian biology lab. Inside, it was teeming with various reptiles and the stench of decay. In no time, I found what I needed. It was none other than the future leader of the water snake legion, the golden serpent. This snake was still alive, feeding off the corpses of its kin. In my past life, it was this very snake that initiated the mutation process. I nearly met my end in its jaws. A week after the floods arrived, it would begin to mutate. I wonder how far it has mutated this time. Moreover, it seems that this snake has evolved a bit of intelligence. If I can't defeat it when the time comes, it could spell trouble. Just then, a sudden noise from behind made me turn around. Sure enough, someone was there. In my previous life, I served goddess Tanmu for 780 days, working tirelessly to earn money for her. Over 2 years, I transferred a total of 510,000 to her, only to be met with cold betrayal. She didn't just see me as an outsider, she humiliated me to the point of death in front of another man. Now, I've been given a second chance at life. I am determined to make her pay 100-fold, even 1,000-fold. Only I know that the apocalypse is approaching. At that time, the global temperature will rise by 1,000 degrees, countless monsters lying dormant underground will awaken, and humans will turn into monsters devouring each other. Survivors will have to fight for resources. At that time, even a single pack of instant noodles could drive people to fight to the death. A single sausage could turn a once majestic goddess into a mere plaything for men. When the apocalypse arrives, what will matter the most? Of course, in most of my past life, I spent my time searching for material possessions, so this time I must be prepared. I was 20 seconds late for work, which deducted half a day's salary. In my past life, before the end of the world, my boss had already fled. In my past life, all the material possessions belonged to me, so I raised my hand. A space composed of blue energy suddenly appears, and all greasy foods will be automatically absorbed. This is my special ability. It brings me great convenience in shopping, and the substances in the space can be kept fresh for a long time. When I started checking the materials in the space, the warehouse manager suddenly pushed open the door, and they were completely stunned by the scene in front of them. Where did all of this go? Listen, I just smiled lightly. It was obvious that when this sentence came out, I took it away. 3 people immediately rushed in, trying to catch me. I disappeared in the blink of an eye, so all 3 of you were wondering where you were. Now I've crossed space and jumped outside the warehouse. This skill can penetrate any space within a 3-meter range. During the end of the world, I am free to collect resources from buildings, and in the face of powerful mutant beasts, I can also save my life. Today, free shopping ends here, and the phone in my pocket rings. The government knows that the end of the world is coming, but in order to avoid causing panic among people, they lied and said it was just a natural disaster caused by crustal movement. At that moment, Jiang Shaoshan suddenly called Chen and said, "You hung the house in the middle of the street. Do you think selling the house will make a woman want to be with you? It'll give you another chance. Immediately transfer the house into my name, or else don't even think about marrying me." Upon hearing this, I abruptly hung up the phone. In my past life, I had endured 80 years serving her, only to have her bring a boyfriend into my home, stabbing me without a word. She didn't just rob me of everything I owned. She treated me as if I were invisible. She even dared to humiliate me to the brink of death. Now that I've been given a second chance, I swear I will make her pay for everything she's done to me. As for the assets, I will need to purchase them with hard cash, so I quickly called the real estate company, seeking manager Liu. But Jiang Shaoxian and her man had already been waiting at the brokerage. As soon as I stepped out of the taxi, she berated me. "Do you know how long I've waited for you?" Yet, I chose to ignore her and walked straight into the store. Upon seeing the situation, her man wielded a baseball bat. "You're blocking our way. Who gives you the right to sell our house? Believe it or not, I'll deal with you right here." But before he could finish his threat, I effortlessly lifted him and slammed him down to the ground like a deflated balloon. Jiang Shaoxian, that wretched woman, even attempted to rush to his aid. I swiftly responded with a hard slap aimed directly at her. Seeing this, Zhang Oshan looked at me in disbelief. "Sothun, you dare hit me?" I merely let out a cold laugh and replied, "What of it? I'm hitting this pathetic couple. Moreover, let me remind you of something. You have no say in how I handle my house. It's not your place to point fingers here." At this moment, Zhang Xiaoxian regained her composure and began to assert her dominance. "While I'm still calm, you better kneel down and apologize, or else don't even dream of marrying me in this lifetime." But the only response I gave them was a cold, menacing glare. Seeing this, the pathetic couple immediately turned to flee, not forgetting to throw a threat over their shoulders. "Sothun, just you wait." Once inside the company, Manager Liu hurriedly approached me, bowing respectfully and asking, "How much do you wish to sell for?" I answered, "I only need half the market value of the house." Manager Liu grinned cunningly. "The house is worth over 100 million, and this fool is selling it for just 70 million. It's easy to pocket tens of millions here." But I insisted that today I would pay the full amount in cash all at once. Compared to material possessions, this house is worthless in the apocalypse. In no time, the 70 million was transferred. However, this amount, in the context of the impending doom, was like a drop in the ocean. I had to think of ways to earn more money. Just then, I spotted a loan advertisement on a telephone pole by the roadside. "Just get the money, and we'll figure it out later." After that, I went to a pawn shop, but Wang Daihai at the pawn shop said he could only offer a maximum of 50 million. Moreover, I had to leave the property deed here. Without hesitation, I slammed the property deed down on the table. 60 million. I need it immediately. I'll pay back both principal and interest once I'm done. Hearing this, Wang Daihai immediately understood. This kid is certainly a gambler. He's so deep into this that he would even sell his own mother for a chance to recover. He simply chuckled to himself, then without hesitation transferred 60 million into my account. Soon after, I arrived at the best 10-star hotel in the city. In my previous life, most structures crumbled before the disaster, but the Lucheng Hotel stood firm until the very end. Later, this place would become my stronghold. Although I had stockpiled plenty of supplies, there were no hot meals to be found within. Thus, I approached the restaurant manager and requested to reserve 1,000 banquet tables. Upon hearing this, the manager was momentarily dumbfounded, yet he proceeded to quote the price for the feast. I reserved 1,000 tables and mentioned that I could make a deposit of 50 million up front. Hearing this, he led me in to make the deposit, already considering me a true young master and immediately concocting ideas of forming connections. He then smiled and asked, "Mr. Su, are you preparing for a wedding?" "Indeed, it's for the wedding," I replied. "While you're at it, please book me a presidential suite as well." I then left the hotel, satisfied. As for the payment later, under the realm of fire, a block of ice could also be worth billions. However, not long after I departed, Zhang Xiaoxian and that despicable couple approached the restaurant manager, claiming that he was the boyfriend of Mr. Shi. What did he come here for earlier? The manager looked her up and down. This girl had none of the elegance I possessed. How could the wealthy nowadays be attracted to someone like her? Nonetheless, he revealed that I had reserved 1,000 banquet tables. Upon hearing this, the despicable couple was immediately stunned, thinking to themselves, how could this poor fellow afford 10 million for a banquet? Seeing their misfortune, the manager promptly pulled out a photo of my deposit from earlier. Perhaps Chen truly was a reclusive young master. They thought to themselves, Chen treating me this way clearly intended to present me with a grand surprise at the wedding, a scene worthy of a fairy tale. I never expected it would unfold in the presence of Chen, that loathsome character. Returning home, Chen began to calculate. After deducting previous expenses, there remained 80 million in the account. Clearly, this amount was insufficient to procure the necessary supplies for the apocalypse. At this moment, to borrow money would truly be unfair. After a series of transactions, the balance in my account suddenly increased by 97 million. Now that I had the funds, I could acquire the essential supplies for the apocalypse. There was no time to waste. Thinking thus, I immediately set to work like a furnace igniting. Ice makers and all other supermarket essentials were purchased online. I even ordered an ice tank, unsure if it could withstand the task at hand. So, I made a deposit of 50 million to order 2,000 tons of smokeless coal and then contacted the ice factory to place my order for ice. The ice factory required me to attend an interview, but as I entered the factory, I unexpectedly encountered Zhang Xiaoxian, the one who had haunted me, along with her best friend. This girl had slandered me in my previous life, falsely accusing me and alleging that Zhang Xiaoxian had taken over my home. The moment I laid eyes on those two, my excitement faded away. Just as I was about to leave, Zhang Xiaoxian pulled me back. Once she discovered I was a hidden tycoon, her attitude shifted dramatically. She kept apologizing and suggested we go shopping together. However, I resolutely declined without a hint of mercy. These two fools thought I was merely putting on a show. In their eagerness to catch up, they hastily called for a taxi. Soon enough, we arrived at the Ronghua ice factory. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, the director promised that within 2 days, 2,000 tons of ice would be ready, but he required a deposit of 100 million. Next day, delivery would be made right to my door, and I could pay the remaining sum then. Upon receiving the 100 million deposit, the boss' grin was as wide as the ocean. "Sir, with such a large order, could it be for a major event? If we collaborate in the future, we can negotiate prices." Hearing this, I simply smiled. I intended to head off for charity work in Alxa, but just as I was about to leave, Zhang Xiaoxian and her friend appeared at the factory director's office. Upon learning I was purchasing 800,000 blocks of ice, their jaws dropped in astonishment. This only solidified their assumption that Chen was indeed a hidden tycoon. When they found out these ice blocks were destined for charity work in Alashan, their shock deepened. After preparing all the necessary materials, I returned to the hotel, ready to indulge in the lavish lifestyle of the wealthy. Yet, when I glanced at the menu, I was left utterly speechless. Prices for the dishes were astronomical, starting at 17,000. It was only after the server's introduction that I learned these were all dishes crafted by a world-renowned Michelin chef. But the specifics depended on how they were presented. Intrigued, I decided to try a few. After a brief wait, a tall girl with pink hair approached, carrying a dish. From her words, I gathered she was the head chef of the restaurant. "This dish has been specially designed for you, tailored to your taste." Hearing this, I looked up, only to be surprised to see her. Hell's exorcist, a master of culinary arts. In the face of the apocalypse, her cooking was enchanting. No one could resist her elegant allure. Yet, the ingredients for these dishes were derived from the bizarre transformations of the frail body. "Lose it, and you shall perish." Seeing my expression, Duan Yu instantly blushed and smiled shyly. Could it be that she feared I, a beauty, would poison her dish? In response, I remained silent, savoring each bite with satisfaction. If the apocalypse truly arrived, who could tell if there was poison within this meal? After finishing, I planned to visit the Century Bar for some fun. After all, this was a paradise for spenders. Some people even dropped millions here without ever touching a single woman. Yet, 2 days later, such places would cease to exist. Thankfully, I could experience it once before the end, leaving no regrets. During our conversation, I learned from the girl that she had come here to drown her sorrows after being deceived by her boyfriend, only to find herself chasing after older women instead. Is it true that all you men only care about sleeping with women? After saying that, I downed the glass of wine in my hand and slammed it onto the table. Then, I asked Chen if he was single. He nodded, and upon hearing that, the girl instantly moved closer. "Do you want to spend the night with me?" At that moment, Zhang Xiaoxian and her friend couldn't sit still and began to chase after us. Seeing this, I embraced the girl in my arms and said, "I want to." Then I pulled her and dashed upstairs. Zhang Xiaoxian, like a piece of gum, continued to pursue us. I hurriedly pulled the girl up to the second floor, reaching the room just a step ahead of them, and locked the door behind us. Then I held her tightly in my arms as she appeared shy. "Is this your first time?" Hearing that made me feel flustered. Suddenly a wave of realization struck me. "You're too drunk. I'm the righteous one here, and I won't do anything inappropriate." Out of good intentions, I reminded her that it was best not to go out for a few days. Those who dream of love shouldn't come to places like this, and there won't be a future either. After that, I slammed the door shut, and as soon as I stepped outside, I saw Zhang Xiaoshan and her friend. Even though I wanted to be with the girl tonight, with these two around, there was no chance. Fast forward to the next day. The items I had ordered arrived one after another, and that troublesome couple brought along their friend too. Zhang Xiaoshan wondered what Chen was really up to. But when they saw the banquet table and the red carpet, Zhang Xiaoshan began to daydream again, thinking I was setting this up to propose to her. After all, even if Chen proposed, I wasn't even sure I'd accept his offer. That would depend on how well he performed at that moment. Zhang Xiaoshan then approached me, asking why I had prepared so much. I merely shot her a disdainful glance. If you want to know, first help me arrange these things, and then we can talk. Chen, are you joking? Zhang Xiaoshan can't do heavy lifting like this. Don't even think about it. A friend beside her reminded, Chen, you must be testing her, seeing if she has what it takes to be a wealthy lady. Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaoshan immediately smiled awkwardly. It's no problem, Chen. I'm not a weak woman. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoshan began dreaming about the life of a wealthy lady. To succeed, one must meet the requirements. If I could endure Chen's test today, he would surely propose to me grandly. Her friend looked at me with bashfulness. Mr. Chen, let me help you, boy. She secretly thought to herself that all young bosses were lecherous. Even if she couldn't become a wife, being a concubine wouldn't be bad either. Seeing this, Chen merely smiled. Free labor is a waste if you don't use it. With so many supplies, even if the factory sent someone, it would take quite a while to move everything. From morning until sunset, they finally finished transporting everything. Zhang Xiaoshan was exhausted, panting heavily. That Chen really was infuriating. Free labor is a waste if not utilized. With so much material, even if the factory sent someone, it would take ages to move everything. From dawn until dusk, we finally finished moving all the supplies. Zhang Xiaoshan was panting, utterly exhausted. That Chen was truly detestable. Moving things all day without a meal. Just wait, when I get my hands on your money, I'll make it mine. His friend was also dead on the ground, unable to get up. That bastard Chen dared to treat me like a beast of burden. That block of ice weighed at least over 100 pounds. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoshan was still dreaming of being a boss. Everything had been moved and checked. Now she should be proposing to me, right? Those wealthy guests should show up any moment now, but they didn't receive the expected outcome. I just gave the driver a nudge, and I'll give each worker a red envelope with 10,000 dong inside. The remaining amount stipulated in the contract will be supplemented in a week. The boss truly is generous and imposing. Zhang Xiaoshan, exhausted like a dog, leaned against the doorframe, swaying as she approached. Shen, it's already come to this. I lazily looked at him. Oh right, if I hadn't mentioned it, I might have almost forgotten. Thank you all for helping me out. If there's nothing else, you can head home. Zhang Xiaoshan was utterly panicked. Shen, don't joke with me. You prepared so much, it's not like you're planning to propose to me. Let those guests show themselves, and we'll get married and live happily together. Hearing this, I bluntly replied, marriage. What a joke. To afford all this, I not only sold my house but also racked up a mountain of debt. If you want to, it's not impossible. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaoshan immediately flared up with anger. How could that be? You've already spent over 10 million on the wedding and countless more on these things. How can you not have money? It dawned on her that what he meant was that this was a charity gift from a wealthy benefactor meant for the poor. How can you buy all these things and still say you don't have money more? Turns out you're saying this because these supplies are being prepared by a wealthy owner for poverty alleviation. They will be delivered to Alxa for use. I'm just here to help everyone out. Upon hearing this explanation, Zhang Xiaoshan was completely infuriated. The ugly truth couldn't be hidden any longer. Shen, you're a damned scoundrel. Turns out you've been deceiving me all along. With that, she shoved me, but I simply sidestepped, coldly retorting, then tell me, what exactly have I deceived you about? Just then, Zhang Xiaoshan suddenly fell to the ground. Shen, You are a filthy bastard. You're not the son of a wealthy owner, so don't dream of marrying me." Hearing this, I looked at her with disdain. Who would want a practical girl like you? Even if you were free, I wouldn't want you. As those words slipped from my lips, Jiang Shaoxin was so furious, she looked as if she might explode. "You die. Shen, you'll pay for what you've done today." With that, she turned on her heel and walked away. Her friend pointed at me. "Shen, you're done for this time." "You fools," I scoffed. "In the apocalypse, there exist pitiable souls like you." I locked the door to the resource vault tightly, all provisions laid out. Now it was just a matter of waiting for the end to unfold. In an instant, everything was drawn into the space, and before I knew it, night had fallen. Rejected, the couple clung to Vung Daihai like shadows. "Chitoso treats you this way. You should let him go and stay by my side. Don't worry, I assure you, Daika will teach him a lesson." As I sat eating, I witnessed it all unfold. This girl really had no standards. Anyone can swallow their pride. In that moment, the couple noticed my presence. "Big brother, that little punk laid his hands on me." Vung Daihai shouted, "So it's you, kid. I was just about to find you. Who would have thought you dared to touch my little brother? What a scoundrel you are," he growled. "You borrowed 600,000 from me, and now it's time to pay up." Jiang Tuthian, having tasted defeat, couldn't help but jab at Sochun. He'll never repay Hai Ka in this lifetime. Luckily, it had nothing to do with him. I wiped my mouth. Even eating was fraught with tension. "You have to repay tomorrow, yet here you are, having a good time, ma'am. So, you really don't take Vung Daihai seriously, do you? Don't say you can earn 600,000 tonight." At that moment, Tu Yin stepped forward. Dog-like man chimed in. "What can he do?" "Daika, don't waste time with him, just get rid of him." Just then, the restaurant manager approached. "Everyone, please keep the peace. If you do, I might spare you a little face. Now, let's have this brat kneel and apologize to my little brother, and we can let this go." The manager quietly asked. "So, Tinsing, what's going on here?" I replied calmly. "Nothing much, just a few small fry." Instantly, Vung Daihai's anger flared. "Do you see me? You won't leave here alive today. Not even the Heavenly King could save you." A burly man approached. "What are you doing? Who gave you the right to cause a ruckus here?" At those words, Vung Daihai's expression shifted. "Trunka, what are you doing here?" The cold voice of Trunka echoed through the air. "I have important matters today. Anyone causing trouble here is directly challenging me." Cao Kung, outwardly a renowned businessman in Thungdo, wove a web of connections in the shadows. His fingers brushed against many enemies, and Vung Daihai could not afford to make such a mistake. If not, Trunka, just handle your own affairs. Tonza Cao Kung, in his previous life during the apocalypse, was a powerful force in Thungdo. Even the hellish executioner Diengoksu Ma Doankat was his subordinate. Previously, the apocalypse had struck at the Lukthan Hotel, the first place to witness the mutation. It seems Cao Kung could rise to the status of Tongya due to the early onset of the mutation. If that's the case, then I'm sorry this opportunity belongs to me. Sochun, this chance is a blend of past grievances and fresh animosities. Cao Kung shot me a cold glance. This kid is somewhat interesting. In a luxurious hotel, General Director Ton said, "I have invited Doankach to join us." "I wonder if you have any insights to share," General Director Ton. With a gentle swirl of his wine glass, Ton replied, "I've heard tales of the enchanting beauty that is Duan. Today, I finally have the pleasure of meeting you. Let us raise our glasses first.